All right, good evening everybody. My name is Mike Marco, and for the next 30-something minutes I will be presenting about Project Lifecycle. Before we start, let me introduce myself formally and ABAC.org. We are a social network that is trying to connect Agile project managers and as well to promote our training and certifications programs such as Agile Expert and Project Management Expert. We also offer other certifications such as PMP, Six Sigma, ITIL, etc. I have 15 plus years of management in mismanagement. I work and lived on 4 different continents. I published a couple of books. More than anything, I'm a project manager, organizer. So I'm very happy to be here with you tonight to present on this subject. Objective of our group again is to establish a social network that will connect people to Agile tools and techniques, that will share tools and techniques related to Agile management, and eventually to promote our programs and services. So, subject for today, project life cycles. The types, benefits, and knowledge areas. Why do we need it? I strongly believe that project managers in the 21st century have to use following approach. They have to learn, adapt, and get it done. We get paid for getting things done. We don't get paid by following processes. And that makes difference in today's market. What about learning? There are so many tools and techniques, frameworks that we can learn as a project managers. I strongly recommend that those who open themselves to all of these tools and techniques would succeed in delivering projects on time more than others. So I have a number of certificates as well. However, I don't tie myself to one certificate or framework when I manage my projects. I am open to deploy tools and techniques as needed to get things done. So you have to be adaptable. So it's not only that you learn, you also adapt to get things done. I strongly recommend that you explore other frameworks, toolboxes that are offered to management to get things done. What is the life cycle anyway? What is the project management? Project management is a number of tasks, related tasks that are focused on a common goal or objective. Management are all tools and techniques that we put together to get things done. Number of related projects is called program, and all projects and programs within organization that support and that should support strategic objectives of an organization are called portfolio. Benefits of the project life cycle is to establish start and finish of the project. It's a time frame, a time box within which we as a project manager establish our tasks, connect to resources, plan with the resources, estimate, and eventually deliver project outputs. When you take over a project as a project manager, you assume that project would be a straight line, which means no issues, no conflicts, no challenges. However, reality is a little bit different. Often we have to skew through our project, move left and right to get things done. And that's our job. Our job is always to push project from start till end. Our job is not to get stuck around the issue and end up in a dead-end project. And if you look at these patterns, you can recognize situations that maybe it's going on within your project when you are trying to avoid certain situation, not to resolve them, and then you end up in a conflict zone and basically in dead-end project. Again, our objective is always to push project forward. Project life cycle is in a size and a scope and frame much less than product life cycle. Often product life cycle is combined of number of project life cycles. So, question to you again: why do we need to know project life cycles? To establish start and finish of our project and time box within. Okay. There are many life cycles that we can use in today's industry. We can start with a waterfall, which is pretty much traditional management. We use waterfall life cycle in a situation when scope, requirements are completely outlined. So when we finish one phase of the project, let's say we outline requirements, then we go with the analysis, design, develop, coding, testing and releasing. We only do that when we have a complete requirement. Such applications are rare to find nowadays, and usually are tied up to large solutions such as industries, products related to software, industries in banking or insurance companies, etc. When you have procedures and policies that are well defined and you want to transfer into software. Okay. Kind of transition to the modern approach, adaptable approach, is pretty much like a rapid project life cycle. When you have a components of the waterfall as well as components of the adaptability to the changes that comes throughout the project life cycle. Okay. So again, we go through analysis and we go into loop between design, testing, coding, testing, etc. if you're talking about the software industry. And step forward into Agile and Scrum environment is incremental life cycle. In incremental life cycle, we recognize that often projects do not have a complete requirement. So we would start project with the requirements that are completely done and stable. And those requirements will not change throughout the project releases. So let's say in this case, the red box represents the stable requirement that was done first and was not changed throughout the project, including the blue one. And as you can see, as we move from release to release, we are adding additional requirements that are stable again. The key here is that we have a stable requirements for every release. And those requirements do not change. Okay. A next step after that, or maybe like another view on the same situation, is called evolutionary. In evolutionary approach, we don't have a complete requirements, and as you can see, requirements grow throughout the project as we release. So every release, we have some addendum to the requirements, to the functions that we build within the system. We can also talk about the cyclical life cycles, such as Scrum, when things are repeated in a cycles. Cycles of 30 days iterations, daily stand-up meetings, etc. We'll talk a little bit more in details about the Scrum life cycle later. If we are talking about the R&D projects, projects they have never done before, we can use pretty much like a spiral life cycle, which means that we are going back and forth until we find the solution that will be acceptable for release. Again, this is used in a situation when we don't have a clear scope, when, again, R&D projects like pharmaceutical industries and some of the government projects as well. In a more structured way, you can organize your life cycle within the stage gate management approach that was developed by Cooper. In this case, you formally acknowledge that transfer or handshake from one phase of the project to another has to go to the formal signature, acceptance, or rejection. So we are starting with an idea and we are going through the R&D, engineering, pilot production, manufacturing, then releasing to the market stages. Okay? All of these stages are formally accepted to secure the throughput within the project and to avoid delivery of the product that's not working to the customer. If you look at the traditional project management from the PMI perspective, the life cycle has 5 processes: initiation, planning, execution, controlling, and closing. And as you can see, they are overlapping each other. Most of our time as a project managers, we spend in planning and controlling. And then the team does execution, basically. The least amount of time that we want to spend is initiation and closing of the project or deliverable. Today, PMI issue a framework within the PMBOK that talks about 10 knowledge areas. And these 10 knowledge areas are really like a part of almost every project management life cycle. We start with the scope. We look if we have resources or if we need to procure resources. Once we procure resources, we ask them about the time they need to complete the task, about the money that we need to provide to them to complete the task. We ask them about the risk related to the project, and we want to make sure that they always deliver something that matches requirement, right? Throughout the project, we communicate and we establish stakeholder expectations so we can deliver a project based on their expectations. The 10th knowledge area would be integration. You put pieces together as they fit your project environment. Again, not all of these pieces should be part of your project unless they're needed. For example, if it's internal project and you don't have procurement efforts, everything is already in-house, you don't need to worry about procurement. Let's go back to Scrum. One of the most adaptable approaches to manage projects is heavily rooted into allowing interaction between customer, end users, expert customers, product owners, and the team members as the developers. So they engage through sprint planning meeting 1 and 2. Team is later engaged into daily stand-up meetings and retrospectives. And these efforts are cyclical, and they repeat basically on a daily, bi-monthly, and monthly basis. Jim Highsmith has developed an agile framework that starts with envision, speculation, exploration, development, and adaptation of the product, and then closure. It's interesting to point out that in Agile, since we don't have a complete scope or stable scope, we speculate, we don't plan. So that's kind of the difference between traditional project management versus Agile. In Agile, we speculate, we cannot plan. You plan only if you know requirements, if requirements are stable enough. Here is another way to look at the Agile approach. The difference, really, it's only like a semantics, a small difference between Agile and Scrum. It's been accepted now that Scrum is part of Agile. So while Scrum is using terms such as sprint and basically signature, etc., Agile is using terms such as iterations, velocity of the team, etc. Even though the difference in the duration of the iteration versus sprint, the concept is pretty much the same. In XP, again, it's just another view at Agile. We are trying to combine, to pair engineers of the same skill level in order to deliver products without errors and to speed up the process of release. So pretty much the same life cycle as Agile. The only difference is pairing the resources, focusing on developing test plans before we start developing code, etc. Based on my experience, what I have seen and what I have done within my projects, I developed my own framework, which is part of the ABAC, and I focus heavily on decomposition. So I start decomposing from requirements level to functions, to specifications, to WBS, and then decomposing WBS to task level. So once you establish link between requirements, functions, WBS or work breakdown structure, and tasks or work orders, you can talk about well-planned project. Now, I don't want to say that I plan projects. I would rather say that I plan iterations or monthly efforts within my team. Well, this is a kind of brief overview of what I had to say about the project lifecycle. If you have any question or comment, please contact us through abac.org.